and welcome to the Monday evening.
Ball like I do after dark. It's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 after dark.
Good Saturday night or Sunday morning. It is Field of 68 after dark. I'm John Fanta. We've got Matt McCall staying up late with us. We've got Jeff Goodman who's celebrating the holidays and trying to maybe will a big Blue Nation comeback here tonight. I mean,
get this out of here.
Jeff, you've got the hat. We're down to the wire. We're going to talk about this game a lot more coming up on the show. Gonzaga's up 76-73 on Kentucky, but Jeff, at one point, this was a 16-point game. Mark Pope made some big-time adjustments, even though his team's shorthanded.
Yeah, I mean, obviously defensively he made some adjustments, and offensively they're starting to make some shots. And Jackson Robinson in particular, he was, I think, 1 or 2 for 8 in the first half, couldn't buy a bucket. And in the second half, was able to kind of make those looks and get them to drop. And defensively, they've done a much better job on the Zags, who were just picking them apart for everything they wanted. I mean, Ryan Nembhard looked like Andrew Nembhard or even more. I mean, he was absolutely terrific in the first half, but they made it more difficult for the Zags. And right now, you're talking about a game that's coming down to one possession with about 2.5 minutes left.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see how this one closes out. I'm going to try something fresh here on a Saturday night. It's called McCall's First Call. Matt McCall, it was a great Saturday of college basketball. You get the first call here before we dive into the Big Ten. The one thing that shined to you the most on this college basketball Saturday, McCall's first call. Give it to me, Coach. Coach, I want to unmute.
If he unmuted himself, he could.
Get him in here. We'll work on that.
Maybe it'll be McCall's last call. How's that?
Yeah,
it'll be McCall's last call.
That's exactly what it'll be. Jeff, let's turn to the Big Ten here, because today there was a top 12 showdown in Milwaukee featuring Marquette and Wisconsin. Marquette coming off a loss to Iowa State. How would they respond? They beat Wisconsin 88-74 as we have Coach McCall back now. 88-74, a Marquette win. Cam Jones in this game, Jeff Goodman, 32 points, 6 assists, not a single turnover. I have to ask you this. Is Cam Jones the best guard in college basketball?
Fan, I think the better question is he the best player in college basketball. Forget about the best guard. You can right now put Cam Jones, I think, in a class with Janai Broome and Cooper Flagg as the 3 best players so far in college basketball this season. And Cam Jones might be number 1 for me because, you look at the supporting cast of Cooper Flagg, and he's got other lottery picks, and he's got veterans coming off the bench, and it's Duke, and Janai Broome's got a pretty good supporting cast as well. I was worried about Marquette going into the season. I didn't rank him preseason top 25 because without Tyler Kolek, I didn't know if Cam Jones would be able to handle this. But he's more than shown he can handle it. He's thrived with it because he can make like tough contested shots if he wants to, but he doesn't even need to take those because he moves the ball, makes his teammates better. He guards. That kid does absolutely – and he dresses well. I mean, as our fashion correspondent, what doesn't Cam Jones do, Matt McCall?
Am I back? I mean, we were on the broadcast for 30 minutes prior to going live, so I don't know what happened there in terms of technology. Maybe at midnight it just goes off. But Yeah, everyone was kind of like, life without Tyler Kolek, how is he going to handle this? And everything he says, I'm going to get more shots. That's exactly what he's doing. I think that's when you look at the landscape of college basketball today, it's like, who just continues to impress? It's Shaka Smart's team. It really is. And, Wisconsin to me is a team that, like, we talk about teams like, how do you handle success or how do you not handle success? And coming out of the Greenbrier tip-off, John Tonje we were talking about him as the best player in the country, the numbers he's putting up. Didn't play great against Chicago State. We saw him lose to Michigan the other night, and I think Dusty May and what Michigan's doing, getting off to a 2-0 start, is another great story in the Big Ten. But it's kind of like, okay, like Wisconsin handling success coming out of the Greenbrier tip-off, haven't done a great job. Now credit Marquette because of what they're doing, and Cam Jones and the level that he's playing at is – I agree with Goodman, and not many people agree with Goodman, but I have to agree with them on this take. There's nobody playing better than him in the country right now. Nobody.
Yep.
And Jeff, it's not just Shaka Smart's teams, as McCall brings up. This is the word, program. It's his program that he's built at Marquette over these 4 years because he is going against the grain in college basketball. He didn't see anybody exit to the portal. He didn't see anybody, he didn't take anybody from the portal. He said, I'll bet on Stevie Mitchell, who's so steady and I think just an unsung hero throughout his career. He's betting on David Joplin. He's doubling down on Chase Ross, who was great today. And Tonje only shot 3 for 11. I think, Jeff, that's what is refreshing. And people may not know this. Jeff, you do well. You can speak to this. Like, Marquette spends big money nationally in college basketball. That's a great job if you can get it going like Shaka's got it. There's a perfect marriage there between program and coach.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it too, and you say to yourself, there's a reason why they've gotten off to a really good start. Because like you said, Fanta, like these guys know what to expect. Now, their roles have changed, but they know what Shaka Smart wants from them when they're on the court, right? I mean, Cam Jones obviously has turned into an all-everything player for Marquette, but some of those other guys I was worried about a little bit because, again, you didn't see as much of them last year. You didn't need to with Kolek and Cam Jones. They were the best Batman and Robin maybe in college basketball last year. Now it's kind of those other guys have all taken steps forward, whether, like you said, it's Mitchell. It's some of the, even Ben Gold's done a good job for the most part. So I think that's the biggest advantage they've had. And, I'm curious from you guys, like, what is their ceiling? Because their floor, we've seen it, is high because, again, they've got chemistry. They've got an understanding. And they're talented enough, and they've got a superstar in their team. But are they a team that you consider, Matt, you could start, and then I want to hear Fanta's opinion because obviously he watches a lot of Marquette in the Big East. Are they a national title contender? At the end of the day, are you going to put them in that conversation as a legit national title contender, or are they just playing a little bit above right now? What they're going to come down to earth a little bit.
Well, I want to go back too because I think this in terms of Shaka, right? Like when you go through what he went through at Texas, you learn who you are as a coach, and you learn who the players you can coach. And like he was going after all the McDonald's All-Americans in the country. That's what he was doing when he was at Texas, right? Like nobody knew who Tyler Kolek was. Like he was a good player at George Mason. I probably should have recruited him at UMass. Thought we had a couple guards too, but like he was a good player at George Mason, but he was the right fit. And Shaka Smart knew who he can coach. So I think you got to start there with him and the job that he's doing at Marquette. But we look at the landscape of college basketball right now, and it's like, okay, Alabama's really, really good. We think Auburn's really, really good. We saw what they did and gone into Duke. We think Duke's really, really good. We think Kansas is really, really good. But it's like, man, it's a crapshoot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Would we be shocked if Marquette cuts the nets down? We may be shocked because of the expectations we had for their team going into the season, losing a player like Tyler Kolek. But I don't think it would shock any of us what they've done up to this point in time. So do I think that they will be there? Do I think they're going to get to a Final Four? I think it's still too early to tell. But when you have a player like Cam Jones on your team that's playing at the level that he's playing at, they're going to have a shot. There's no question. Now, can he sustain this throughout the course of the season? That's the biggest question. But
it's a lot on
in terms
him.
of
It's still, even though those guys
it's a
have moved
lot
forward,
on him.
It's a lot on him.
It's a lot on. It's a lot on.
Yeah.
The last time Marquette made a Final Four, there was a man named Dwayne Wade who just single-handedly powered them. And I'm going to go off this discussion for a second and go right to it. 10 seconds to go here. Kentucky tied up with Gonzaga at 79. Around the screen, down the lane, rejected by Ike. 4 seconds left. Brea from the elbow. It's short. Deflected out. They're going to overtime in Seattle. Kentucky and Gonzaga tied at 79. Put 5 minutes on the clock, Jeff.
Man, Brea had a great look there. Great look. Like, you're not going to ask for a better opportunity than Kobe Brea right there from about 16 feet. He just has not made shots tonight. He struggled a little bit, at least for the most part tonight. Look at this. I mean, wide open. 2 seconds left.
What a game. What a wild game.
But if you're Kentucky, you're thrilled to get this game to overtime from where you were at halftime, where I think all of us thought this could get very,
100%.
very ugly. And I give Mark Pope's team – you know, the one thing that I've really been blown away watching Mark Pope closely, not just this year, but last year as well. I was down there for practice at BYU, and I remember saying to myself, like, I thought he'd be more of an MFer in practice to these kids, and instead he is like Harry positivity for the most part. Like, he is, like, I can't even explain it. It's like dorky,
my kind of guy.
Jeff, is
yeah,
it
Mr. Pop? Yes.
Yes.
Is it Scott Drew like positivity, Jeff?
Yeah, he's got more shit to him than Scott. He's definitely got more shit to him. But ultimately, Mark Pope, I think, understands with this group what this group needed. You know, last year, you know, he had coached a lot of those BYU kids for a few years. This is a completely new team, and I think he knew he needed to get some of these guys' confidence up. But I love his approach with these players. You know, I've seen it earlier this year in Champions Classic, and like I said, saw it with that BYU team a little bit, and it's just not what I expected. I heard Jimmy Dykes say it today, actually, during the game in the first half. He said, you know, earlier in his career, he was probably too much of an MFer and was channeling his inner Rick Pitino. And I think as he's gotten older, he's understood that, you know, the times have changed. That doesn't work like it worked with, and he's not Rick Pitino either. You know, with Rick Pitino, you can do that when you're a Hall of Famer, and kids probably listen to you a little bit differently than they do if you're Mark Pope right now.
We'll have Archie Miller to get the coach's perspective a little bit later. His Rhode Island Rams are 9-0. They beat Providence earlier today. A statement win for URI. A great conversation coming up with a former Field of 68 cast member later in the show. To finish up with Marquette briefly, and then we'll get to the rest of the Big Ten. You know, the last time they make the Final Four, it's Dwayne Wade. And look, that was a great Marquette team, but Dwayne was the centerpiece of that team. When you watch Cam Jones, he is in total control of how the game is getting played. He doesn't turn the ball over. He makes it look easy. In the lane right now, he's got pro-style moves. The answer is, would it be surprising to see them in a Final Four? I think at the start of the season, we would have been downright shocked. I'm no longer surprised at that if that happens because, Jeff, it's a guards game, and Marquette can walk into the arena on any given day, and they know they've got the best guard in the game, and they defend. Here's one thing about Marquette last year. As good as Kolek and Iguodala were, Marquette struggled at times defensively. They softened up at times. This team is guarding Jeff Goodman, and it's a credit to Shaka because he knew my team's got to guard better. We're not as good offensively.
Yeah, I mean, again, Stevie Mitchell, Chase Ross, Joplin, and I think Cam has upped his defensive game. And that's hard to do with everything that's on his shoulders right now offensively. You know, most guys, all right, you're the point guard, you're the leading scorer, you've got to create everything for yourself and for others. All right, I'm going to take plays off. I mean, he takes some, but not that many for a guy that's probably as good an offensive player as there is right now in college basketball. And the difference from those other players that I mentioned, even Cooper Flagg, right? Even Cooper Flagg, who's a terrific player, but we saw it the other night against Auburn a little bit that you need to take the pressure out. You can't just clear out for Cooper Flagg and let him go to work. Obviously, Janai Broome, you can't do that as well. Somebody's got to get him the ball. To me with Cam Jones, good luck, man. Good luck. You want to throw two guys at him, try to trap him, he's going to find somebody for an easy basket. You don't, you play him one-on-one, he can go by you. He can also just raise up and shoot over you. So there's so many different ways he can hurt you. That's the beauty of Cam Jones. Cam Jones, to me, might be the best, and I can't believe I'm saying it with Cooper Flagg playing this year, but Cam Jones might be the best all-around player in the country right now.
Yeah, I think you got a point. I really do. Let's go around the Big Ten. We got about 5 minutes here in our first segment. So, Jeff, I'm going to put you in the test. You're going to take us down the avenue here. And, McCall, you can counter this. But, Jeff Goodman, there are 2-0 teams in Big Ten play, 2 of them. And they both come from the state of Michigan. The Michigan State Spartans, the Michigan Wolverines. I got to have you do it here. You can buy stock in one of these 2 teams. Oof. Who are you taking and why right now?
I'm going to take Michigan. I like their roster better. I like their roster better. Obviously, I get Tom Izzo, a Hall of Famer, coaches Michigan State. But after watching them in person earlier this season, I just don't think that roster can make a deep run, whether it's in the Big Ten, whether it's in the NCAA tournament. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, they beat the living crap out of Nebraska tonight. I mean, they destroyed them. They destroyed them in the glass. It was like a vintage Tom Izzo team. I like the way this Michigan team is put together for the most part. Still, I want to see more of Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf together defensively, but they've been downright unstoppable the last 3 games. And 2 of the 3 were really good wins, obviously, against Xavier and Wisconsin.
McCall.
I'm going Michigan. And to me, it's, at this point in time, it's not even really close. Like Danny Wolf's out there looking like a point guard, like with the ball in his hands, bringing the ball down the floor at the power forward spot. And you look at the 2 Big Ten teams that they've played. Going into the first Big Ten game, Wisconsin was undefeated. They're a top 25 team, and Michigan goes in there and basically shuts that offense down. It was one of the most efficient offenses in the entire country going into that game. The Wisconsin, they were averaging 83 points per game. I think they were, top 10 in the country in offensive efficiency going into that game. And Michigan, they shut them down and held them in the 60s. So, for me, it's just that. I would never count out Tom Izzo. I've gone on the field of 68 a gazillion times when, Michigan State has lost 2 games in a row and, oh my gosh, it's the end and what's going on. But right now you're lining these 2 teams up at this point in time in the season. I think it's really impressive what Dusty May is doing, turning that program around. They've missed the last 2 NCAA tournaments, and playing those 2 bigs together, I was skeptical about it. I'm like, how's this going to work? How's this going to work on the offensive end of the floor? When you look at how Dusty's teams played at FAU, it was all floor spacing. You had Vlad Golden that was on the inside, but everybody else was spacing the floor. And this guy, Danny Wolf, if you haven't seen him, you need to turn the TV on because he's fun to watch.
Yeah, he is. And you think about Michigan. Today they win 85-83 over Iowa. In this game, Vlad Golden goes for 20 and 11. Danny Wolf goes for 13 and 14. And against Wisconsin, they combined for over 40 in that game and 20 rebounds. And you think about this too, Jeff. In the last 2 games, Michigan's won these games over Wisconsin and Iowa. They've shot a combined 10 for 45 from 3 in the process. That's terrible from 3. But they've still found ways to win. Just imagine, Jeff, what happens when the guards start to get in sync. I think more than anything, Jeff, there were some skeptics about the Dusty May hire. What say you?
One Jeff Borzello. Let's call him out for who he is, right?
Wow.
He wasn't alone. Let's be honest. And Borzello, he thinks highly of Dusty May. Just Not as highly as I do, not as highly as Matt McCall does. He was a little skeptical of the move to Michigan. Listen, there is still some skepticism about their perimeter shooting. Let's be honest, right? They play those two bigs. Trey Donaldson's not a great shooter. Roddy Gale's a little bit streaky. So they're going to go through those nights. And again, I'm not sold like Wisconsin was as good as what they were doing earlier this season. Still a nice win, obviously. Anytime you can win it in Madison,
At the Kohl
it's
Center.
a hell of a win. And you beat Iowa today. Again, I'm not sure how good the Hawkeyes are, but a win is a win in league play. We know Matt McCall's, his mantra, winning is hard. And it is in league play especially. So good start. You turn back the clock to a year ago right now. We were talking about, a fight between the strength coach and Juwan Howard, potentially. And now you're talking about winning.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, while we have a minute here before we break, Ohio State beat Rutgers today, 80-66. Rutgers is now 5-4, and they lose their Big Ten opener, and they have two of the best freshmen in college basketball. But the fact is, they're 5-4. What's your thought process with Rutgers, and could you see things going sideways?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just saw him a couple times out in Vegas. Dylan Harper's friggin' phenomenal to watch. He's fun, man. He has great command, but there's just too much on his shoulders. And he plays with a poise, high IQ, all of that. He just doesn't have enough around him, period. And Ace Bailey is super talented. The upside is there, but you don't necessarily always know what you're going to get from Ace Bailey, right? Whether you're going to get the efficiency or not. He is a tough shot taker, and sometimes he's a tough shot maker, and sometimes they're not going in. So I feel like those guys probably took up 95% of their NIL payroll, would be my guess, and they didn't have a lot of money to put a lot of other guys around them. And you're seeing, how difficult it is when you do something like that, especially, again, when one of those two is a little bit of a wild card some nights.
McCall.
Yeah, I think too, I think Coach Peichel in trying to manage these two guys, right? I mean, two of the best recruits in the entire country that are coming in. His teams have always been teams that want to keep the games in the 60s and kind of muck it up and play, defense and do all that. And right now they're like 228th in the country in total defense, so it's like he's trying to figure this out a little bit as the coach. Like, how am I managing these guys, right? And that's, I think, why you see they're dropping some of these games is like, and I'm not trying to put pressure on Steve Peichel, but that's real. Like, I got these two elite level players, okay, that we probably paid a bunch in NIL for them to come here. And, one of their brothers obviously played there. So that helped in getting him in recruiting, but that's tough. And he's a guy that's just kind of been like a grinder and like, we'll take under the radar guys and we'll get in here and we're going to win the game 62-64 and be fine with it and make the NCAA tournament. Now you got superstars, NBA players. That's a different challenge for him to deal with.
It really is. Rounding out the Big Ten scoreboard, USC went to Washington. Obviously, been a tough start to the year for Coach Sprinkle, but an 85-61 win for USC, who gave Oregon a real game in the Big Ten opener. I think the point, Eric Musselman, it's a different USC. Even in his first year, they're a bit of a live grenade in that conference in terms of their ability to just compete, because that's what Muss will do throughout conference play. Hey, Kentucky and Gonzaga, they've got a $109 to go in overtime. It's a 3-point game. Kentucky trying to pull off what would be one of the most impressive wins of the season today. We'll talk about that and much more. Just getting started on After Dark.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today.
Welcome back to the Field 68 After Dark. John Fanta, Jeff Goodman, Matt McCall with you as Kentucky and Gonzaga continue to go down the stretch. Let's turn to the Big East. Tonight, I've got my Louis Carnesecca tribute sweater on because
Phenomenal.
this morning,
By the way. Phenomenal.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you. Coach, let's start with you.
Phenomenal.
Emotional week at St. John's. Lou Carnesecca passes last Saturday. St. John's hosting Kansas State today. And the Johnnies played a second half that Louis would have been proud of. They outscored Kansas State 53-32. Rick Pitino comes out in Lou Carnesecca's, basically his sweater, had a sweater made from a tailor at Calvin Klein. And it just made for a Hollywood script in New York City for the Johnnies. What'd you make of that whole scene today and that outcome?
Yeah, and then he laid it on the logo at the end of the game. I mean, that was awesome. That was a great moment. And even Jerome Tang coming out in the sweater today, I mean, that's what that game needed. For St. John's coming out of the Bahamas, I mean, the biggest issue for them in the Bahamas was the turnovers. And today they only turned it over 8 times. So they showed what they can be. Again, the 3-point shooting. And I said this in studio the other day for NBC when they played against Harvard. It's like, who's going to be that next guy to be able to step up and make threes? You know, they were 8 for 27 today, 29%. Like, that to me will be the ceiling of this team. It's like, can they become more consistent shooting the basketball behind the 3-point line? We know they're going to defend, right? Like, we know that you can't play for Rick Pitino and not play defense. So their defense is going to give them a chance in every single game. But it's like the 3-point shooting has been the biggest issue outside of the turnovers in the Bahamas. And they got that corrected tonight. They didn't turn the ball over. But great moment, great win. And that was really cool to watch.
Zuby. I mean, it's about Zuby, isn't it? Like, he dominated in the paint.
Double.
I mean, it felt like he had 20 offensive rebounds in that game. I don't know how many he ended up with, but it felt like he had 20.
28 and 13 today. 28 and
13 rebounds, non-offensive. Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely terrific. He's come a long way. Rick Pitino, if there's anybody who can get somebody to, I always say, and McCall can speak to this way better than I can, but it's hard to teach somebody to play hard all the time. Like, generally that's something you either have or you don't. It's hard to get somebody to play with that kind of ticker all the time. I feel like Rick Pitino's done that with Zuby so far this year, that he's playing so much harder than he did last year. So dominated on the glass, took care of the ball, and they defended the 3-point line, which they didn't do. Brendan Housen was unconscious in the first half, and that's why Kansas State led by 10. And what did they do? They made sure that they defended the 3-point line, made sure Housen made it difficult for him, and actually made him have to put the ball on the floor. And I thought the whole game changed.
Yeah, it really did. And you're right on Ejiofor. Quick story on that. Rick Pitino sends Bill Self video footage of Ejiofor's individuals making shots and scoring and says, I thought you told me that he didn't have an offensive skill set. In a very funny way.
That's the other point, though, Fanta. Like, if you're going to go play for Rick Pitino, like, I mean, Coach Donovan used to tell stories about individual instruction when he was a player at Providence. Like, it has not gone anywhere. You have to, like, the individual instruction piece, like those assistant coaches, Pitino, like, they're in the gym with those kids. Like, we have practice at 3:00. You better be in the gym at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning working on your game. Like, that is a piece of the Pitino program, like the individual instruction piece. So many coaches now abandon that piece, right? It's just like, oh, we can practice in the summertime. No, like, mandatory individual instruction before class.
Oh,
and I guess I don't know if anybody goes to class anymore anyways, right? Everything's online and who knows, but that stuff for Coach Pitino has gone nowhere.
Wow.
That piece. And you see the numbers from one year to the next of these guys. It's impressive.
We got a game here. All right, McCall, let's go live and watch the end of this thing.
Let's do this. So Jackson Robinson knocked down a wild runner with the shot clock coming down. Gonzaga counters with a 3. So Kentucky is up 1 with the ball with just over 4 seconds to go in this game. Utterly absurd college basketball game. And for Kentucky here, they've got the ball. They're in the backcourt. 4.6 seconds to go. They do not have a timeout. Neither does Gonzaga. So McCall, talk some strategy here with me. When you're in the backcourt, you've got an inbounds. You're up by 1. There's 5 seconds on the clock. What are you telling your kids if you're Kentucky with the ball here?
I'm saying Mark Pope's going to go with the old football play that everybody runs nowadays, right? Where they just line everybody up along the baseline and just break out, and then your fastest guy just sprint back to the ball. Here's the biggest key, Fanta. Whoever's coming back to the ball, you have to catch it and come to a jump stop. Because you can catch it at that speed, and if you don't jump stop, you're going to travel. So whatever action you're going to run, and the guard or whoever you want the ball to catch this, and then understand, okay, the inbounder has to step in because we need an outlet because there's a trap coming. Now, I don't think Gonzaga has enough time to trap. They're probably going to have to foul right away. But when you catch it, 1, don't travel. 2, where's your outlet? Where is your outlet? And you need 2 of them. You need to look at the sideline first, or it's going to go right back to the inbounder behind you and maybe the middle of the floor. But you better know your outlets and do not travel when you catch it. But everybody does the old football play. Here's the other thing.
They foul Andrew Carr right away. Carr is going to go on the line for 2 free throws with 4.3 seconds left. So then let's turn it around. Let's say he makes both free throws. Are you fouling?
In the backcourt. Don't do what Butler did against Northwestern and foul him at half court when that shot should have counted. And I think we all agreed that shot should have counted. Right? Like
Carr's a 79. Carr's a 79% free throw shooter this year. 3 for 3 on the night. But you got to foul him, McCall. If he hits both, you got to foul him. You got to get him.
Take luck out of play. Take the luck out of play.
I'll tell you what, the 3 of us have never been a booth together, but you two just covered it so eloquently here. Carr steps to the line, 4.3 seconds left. Rob Douster keeps texting us updates about the game. Carr missed the first.
I don't understand. If Douster's going to text us updates, just jump on, Rob. What are you doing?
We're watching the game, Rob. We're watching the game. We got this covered. We're good.
Come on.
Okay.
Do you know my only issue with Coach Pope? You know my only issue? If you're going to wear a suit, wear a suit. If you're not going to wear a suit, don't wear a suit. Pick one. Do the quarter zip or pick the suit. You can't keep going back and forth.
4.3 left. Here's Carr at the line. This is going to produce a viral Feel of 68 moment. He missed it. Stromer's got it with 2 seconds. Dusty Stromer lost it. Time expires. Kentucky has come back from 16 down to shot Gonzaga in Seattle.
What a win. I mean, that is – listen,
I wouldn't say it's
now they've won 2 close games. Think about this.
It's a shocker. It's a shocker, McCall. They were down 16 points.
They were down 16. I don't know if it's a shock that BBN showed out for that game too. There's a lot of Kentucky fans in there.
Wow. Jeff, what's this mean, Jeff? What does this mean for the Kentucky Wildcats, for Mark Pope, who now own wins over Duke and Gonzaga? Gonzaga, their 175-game winning streak, when leading by 10 or more in a game, is over. Their first loss during that streak since Arizona State in 2015. What did we just watch? What's this mean for Mark Pope?
Well, this puts them now they've beaten Duke and Gonzaga already, going into league play, which is going to be a beast. We know that.
Ooh.
So this gives them, and they did it without Lamont Butler, guys, their best perimeter defender. That's part of the reason Nembhard went crazy in the first half. It shows that they have the depth, and again, Mark Pope gives them the confidence. You see guys like Brandon Garrison jacking threes, and Mark Pope doesn't yell at him. He's not screaming at him. In fact, it's the opposite. If they're not taking those shots, he's going to be upset. So look at him. I mean, Pope going crazy. He knows what this win means because, again, the Duke win was a neutral site win. This was a win in a more hostile place, obviously in Seattle.
Matt, I know what you mean. That it's not a shocker to you when you look at the final score. But I got to tell you, it's a shocker when you consider how much Kentucky got run off the floor in the first half. They got run off the floor. It looked like it was going to be blowout city. This is an amazing comeback without Lamont Butler, and Kirk Kriisa went down with an injury.
Couple things, Fanta. Couple things. One, let's just talk about the response after the Clemson loss, right? Like that like let's start there. Like, to refocus your team, reshift your team's focus. Like, okay, like, we didn't play our best. Let's not overreact. You know, in those types of situations, a lot of coaches overreact. Didn't overreact. Now we got to go on the road, and even though it was a neutral site, and you could hear BBN was in there. Now, there were some Kentucky fans in the building. I mean, when they were going on a run, it got a little bit louder, but it's still a difficult trip to go on. The adjustment defensively in the second half.
Yeah.
The showing the 1-3-1, jumping into man, then switching ball screens, and then all of a sudden, no, we're going to play 1-3-1 now for 20 seconds in the shot clock. Like, that's not an easy thing to do for your team. Like, that's not easy at all. And they did that, and they completely took the team out of the rhythm. Adjustments. We talked about it off the air. This Kentucky team made adjustments at the half. That is coaching. That is what coaching is. It's not going well doing it the way that we're doing it. The game plan that we came in with in the first half is not working. We just gave up 50 points. We're on pace to give up 100. What are we going to do in the second half to make adjustments, to slow this offense down, to take them out of rhythm? That's what they did, and that's a credit to Mark Pope and his team.
Statement maker. Statement maker because of this. When Mark Pope takes this job, there's excitement level on one side, there's questions
and
on
head
another.
scratching. It's like, is this the right guy? It's BBN. Are you kidding me? And he's embraced it.
I think this was the luck. When I put the hat on, when I put the hat on, everything they took the lead. That was it.
But you know what it is? McCall just said it. In-game changes, not stubbornness to stay with what was going on the whole time. If they stayed the course, Jeff, they were losing this game by 25. This is an incredible comeback that was rooted in defense, rooted in toughness. Andrew Carr continues to be clutch, and Jackson Robinson comes up big. I just think that when you're laying a foundation right now, Jeff, BBN has big expectations no matter what team it is. This is how you show them that you're the right guy for this job. This is how you show them, Jeff, that you're the right man for this job. Maybe Kentucky was the winner of this whole coaching carousel after all.
It furthers the notion for Big Blue Nation that, you know what, John Calipari leaving and them kind of running him out of town, which is really what happened. I mean, ultimately they ran him out of town into Fayetteville, that it was the best move. It was the best move for Kentucky because it had run its course, and they brought in a guy that's one of their own. And again, listen, here's the one thing I'll say about all this is if you lose in the first round and you're a 1 or a 2 seed, they're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy. So you need to not only be relevant in the regular season, but you have to be relevant come NCAA tournament time. But this is the first step. Right? Like, you can't be irrelevant and just sneak into the NCAA tournament like Syracuse, did for a few years straight. You have to be both if you're Kentucky. And what Mark Pope has done with a roster that looked good, but not overpowering. Let's be honest. I mean, I was wondering how the pieces would fit, especially in the perimeter, right? You had Lamont Butler, who didn't play tonight, but he's a little offensively challenged, but terrific defensively. And Kirk Kriisa is kind of the opposite. And Brandon Garrison, how would he take coming off the bench? Amari Williams, could he adjust to making that jump to high major basketball? Jackson Robinson, could he be a go-to guy? I just think they've got a lot of good pieces. And while Louisville has struggled lately, now they're down a few pieces, Kentucky continues to thrive.
Unbelievable. I mean, when you think about this win, to come back from 18 down, it got as large as 18 in the second half. And Gonzaga shot 54% in the opening 20 minutes. Graham Ike could not be stopped. They looked like one of the best teams in America. But Pope tried some different things. He mixed up his defenses in the second half. They guarded the post a lot better. And they got big-time production. We've been talking about it, Matt. We've been talking about it, Coach. Jackson Robinson, when he follows Pope, we're thinking he's going to be one of the best players in the SEC. And we haven't fully seen it with the bright lights on. We really haven't. Tonight, 18 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, came up clutch. And Andrew Carr, coach, continues to be beyond his years. That was a big transfer portal pickup from Wake. He has panned out, coach.
Yeah, no question about it. And like Kerr Kriisa, like him, don't like him, love him, hate him, whatever it is. He's kind of the heart and soul of the team with how he plays and the energy, right? Diving on the floor for the loose ball, like this team plays inspired. Like they play inspired for their coach. That to me, like how you want to play, there's a million different ways to win basketball games. You can press, you can play zone, you can run ball screens, you can do a lot of different things. If your team doesn't play inspired and they don't play for one another, you have no chance. You have zero chance. This team plays inspired. They play really, really hard. And I thought one of the most impressive things, too, is like when we've seen this Kentucky team play this year, it's like, okay, man, floor spacing, a lot of passes per possession. The ball's getting raced up. They're going to shoot a ton of threes. Kobe Bryant is going to lead the country in three-point field goal percentage. That game was like – that was in the trenches a little bit. I mean, it's a physical basketball game. Like there was some physicality going on in the game, and they found a way to win it. Again, adjustments, changing defenses, 1-3-1, 1-3-1 to man. No, we're going to play 1-3-1 the entire possession. That just showed, hey, Kentucky, they can win different ways. They can win scoring 110 points. They can win possibly having to play a game in the trenches and getting it mucked up a little bit. That was what a win.
Jeff, I mean, you've been doing this a long time. Can you remember? It's hard to remember when it was last. A Kentucky team in a game of this magnitude getting beat as badly as they were, down by 18, looking dead and buried, making the adjustments to the degree they did, nor alone to Gonzaga. Again, folks, if you're just joining us, Gonzaga's just ended a streak of 175 straight games won in which they led by at least 10 points. It's their first loss of that instance since 2015 to Arizona State. Can you remember a win like this for Kentucky?
Yeah, I'm sure Cal's had one that he's come back from this, but again, they had so much talent. They could do it a different way on you. This isn't that type of team. And also let's not forget they did it against the Gonzaga team that had a ton of retention. And
yes, 81%.
Right. They're old. They had a lot of dudes back. They're playing it in their quasi, home court, somewhere they play, pretty much every year in Seattle. So they had the home court advantage there. But for Kentucky to go in and again, change things up at halftime, stick with it, fight back, get back in the game. Then, by the way, you miss an open opportunity by Brea to win the game in regulation and still get it in overtime, again, against a veteran club with arguably the best true point guard in the country in Ryan Nembhard. Really, really, really impressive.
Yeah,
it puts them in a different category for me. Now, listen, when you're ranking them right now, they're a team that most of the teams look at in the top 10 this week. A lot of them lost, right? I saw Duke beat Auburn. Kansas obviously lost to Creighton. A bunch of teams lost. I have it right in front of me here. Marquette lost earlier in the week to Iowa State.
Kentucky lost earlier this week.
They did. Right. They lost to Clemson on the road. Purdue lost at Penn State. A lot of teams losing on the road, right? That's why this one will stand out. A win at Gonzaga is all these teams are playing these neutral site games right now. And, frankly, a lot of the atmospheres are just okay. The one in Vegas was pretty good with Duke and Kansas. Champions Classic's always good, but there's some bad crowds at some of these neutral site games. But
credit these coaches for playing these games, Jeff. Because all we're talking about right now, we have to watch a 4-hour show tomorrow about the college football playoff. That's what we have to do tomorrow. That show's 4 hours long. You mean to tell me it's going to take 4 hours to reveal 12 teams? Are you kidding me?
Take
4
They'll
hours.
find a way.
But, nobody, like,
for,
but in
for
terms
people,
of in terms of like creating more buzz around college basketball in November and December, these games matter. People will pay attention to these games. A lot of people were watching this game on the West Coast because the football games were over, right? Like Clemson, Dabo, he's going back to the playoff. Not a shock to anybody. But nobody's like, you're not tuning into a game in Vegas where there's, a couple thousand people there. But you'll tune into Duke Auburn at Cameron Indoor Stadium.
And I'll tell you, I was there.
So, like, there's 9
So I did that
undefeated
game.
teams still left, right? There's 9 undefeated teams. And I think if you look at all the 9, and we're gonna get into Archie Miller here in a little bit, because what a turnaround he's doing at Rhode Island to get them back going in the right direction. But some of these teams that are undefeated, my alma mater, it's like, have they really played anybody? You're undefeated, but have you played? Are you going on the road to Duke, to Cameron Indoor Stadium to play a game to create more buzz around college basketball in November and December? Like, that's what we need. And I get it. Like, as a former coach, like, look, you want to try to schedule to win 25 games. I get it. But, like, if you are confident about your bunch, like John Shire's confident about his team, he'll play anybody. Mark Few's confident about his team. He'll play anybody. Mark Pope's confident about his team. They'll play. Like, that's great for our game. That's great for our game. The neutral site games, look, I called 2 of them. There were some great environments. It was awesome. But, like, the home and homes to create more buzz in November and December is what college basketball needs with these powerhouses.
Jeff, I'm going to take the stage for a moment and say this. Tomorrow, meaning today, because we're on 12:47 a.m. Eastern time, marks the 5-week mark of the college basketball season. We're through the first 5 weeks of the season. Through 5 weeks, the Kentucky Wildcats are 8-1. They own wins over the Duke Blue Devils, who have as compelling a player as any in college basketball and the most compelling prospect in the country. And they own a win over the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who returned 81% of their scoring. And when it comes down to retention, among the biggest heavy hitters in the nation, they are at the top of that list. And Kentucky has wins over both of them. So if you said Duke was inexperienced in that game, Kentucky, they took advantage at the time of year, that argument now gets squashed. Lamont Butler, out. Kirk Kriisa goes down banged up. It forces you to change up what you do. If you're a member of Big Blue Nation, my message to you is this. You should crack open whatever bottle you have in your kitchen or whatever you've got in your refrigerator right now, and you should be celebrating like Goodman is with that hat, because the Kentucky Wildcats just showed that they are not just talk, that they are results under Mark Pope, because they've packaged together a couple of marquee wins here that nobody, if I told you November 4th, Kentucky would beat Gonzaga and Duke, you would have said, wow. Wow, this is a wow start to the Mark Pope era.
Yeah, and when I was there for that Duke win, it was almost a little bit surprising, right? How they won it, they come out of it, and I think even Big Blue Nation thought to themselves, all right, like, we're ecstatic. We love this guy, and now he beat Duke, but, like, is this going to be sustainable? We don't have the John Walls and the elite talent. Is this just going to be a one-off and we're going to be average or above average the rest of the year, but not beating those type of teams? And again, I think this one kind of validates even further what Mark Pope is as a head coach, and that he is a guy that, and they're going to have the resources. Let's be honest. They had it this year. They had plenty of money to be able to spend for NIL. They put together a good team, but part of it is having the right staff to put together the right group of guys. Like, Mark Pope is not going to take a bunch of turds. That's not him. That's never going to be him. He's going to try to take high character guys that fit him. Even a kid like Kirk Kriisa, right? Like, a lot of people question Kerr. I've known Kerr for a long time, and I love him personally. But again, he's probably not the easiest guy to coach. Certainly wasn't at one point in his career. But, Mark Pope, I think, has a great way about him of being able to connect with and individually be able to push the right buttons with these guys and spend time with them, to whereas they trust them and they'll play hard for them.
Isn't this way, Jeff? And then Coach will get your thought. isn't this way of building the roster and going into the portal and getting a blend of winners and experience and depth more conducive to winning in 2024-25 college basketball than the way that this program was doing it the last 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, listen, right now you got to be older. You got to be older. We know that. Next year it might be a little bit different without the COVID, the COVID kids, the 5th year, 6th year, 7th year kids, the freshmen. And freshmen, let's be honest right now, this freshman class is far more impactful than last year's or the year prior's. It's a better class, and next year we'll probably have it be even further because, again, you won't have the age gap like it was. So I just feel like Pope, what he's going to do and he's already done is figure out a mix. He's not getting away from high school players completely. He's already gotten some pretty highly touted high school players, some that have committed for next season. But I think he'll have a good mixture of transfers, high school players, shooters, defenders. Like, again, it's just so much more aesthetically pleasing to the eye to watch this Kentucky team than the last couple of years when it was like painful to watch that offense. And really, if you go down to Fayetteville now, it's like honestly going to the dentist sometimes, watching that offense and the way John Calipari runs it. And then you look at Mark, and I've talked to Big Blue Nation fans, believe it or not, there are a couple that actually like me, and they say the same thing. Like, this is a fun team to watch because they move the ball and they can actually make shots from three.
Wow. I mean, McCall.
They love you now because you have that hat on too. So there's no way that
hey, I got this hat a year ago in Charleston.
Ever going to be mad at you anymore? Okay, like BBN loves you now.
A buddy of mine just texted and said, "What is that hat on Goodman? Is he drunk right now?" I said, "No, he's just wearing. He's just wearing it because he's. Hey, you know what, Jeff? Though seriously, like for a moment, you're kind of high on the Pope era in terms of like, yeah. I'm tired of talking about what ifs with Kentucky. They're putting some results together, McCall, and you know it. I'm going to pull out your phrase, winning is hard, but like what Kentucky just did tonight is hard. They were down by 18 to Gonzaga. I'm actually kind of looking at this score thinking, how did Gonzaga unravel in this game? So atypical of Mark.
And two, like, There's a level of pressure that Mark Pope is dealing with being the head coach of BBN. And he's completely embracing it. And I said it on our Hot Take show. I said it. I was like, look, he loses a couple games. BBN's going to be like, is he the right guy? And he's completely embraced it. And you said it, Fanta, like that game could have gone the complete opposite way if Kentucky doesn't make adjustments. They made the adjustments. And he found a way to win. And it's, you know what, like when you're coaching at your alma mater, like that's a different level of pressure. It's a different level of pressure that you feel. Well, and he's embraced it.
Let's go out to Seattle right now. We have Kentucky's Otega Oweh, who contributed 13 points in this 90-89 Kentucky win over Gonzaga. Otega, you got a smile on your face, and you should right now. How did your team come back from 18 down tonight to beat the Zags?
You know, we just have to believe in each other. You know, obviously the whole world was watching this game, and it's hard because obviously the whole world was watching. So, you know, when you just have to have belief and know that you believe in the group that is in the gym with you. You just have to go out and go hard every single possession. You can't look at the score, can't get down on yourself. Just have to be even keel and just go out there and play hard.
Otega, I remember watching you back in AU ball, and man, I love you because you play so damn hard, and you did back then. You brought that obviously to Kentucky, and I think what Mark Pope has done here is he's assembled a team that you guys are very different. Come from a lot of different backgrounds. You're different types of players. What is it about Mark Pope that I think you all feel kind of free to be able to be yourselves and play free? And give me why it works for Mark Pope.
You know, he just pumps confidence into his players, really. he wants the players to go out there every day, every game, and just be confident and believe that they can do whatever they do or whatever they work on in the closed gym. So, he just pumps in so much confidence in the guys. And on top of that, when you have a coach that believes in you so much and will do anything for you, it just makes you want to go out there and play even harder. At least for me, that's what it is because, he just really cares about his guys, really cares about the players. And when you have a coach like that, it's hard to go out there and not play hard, really.
Otega, that charter plane ride back is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, and I know it's a long ride, but you guys are going to have some fun on that plane. Look, I can't even imagine. So we'll get you out of here as soon as we possibly can. Down 16 at the half, gave up 50 points in the first half. What was that message like at the half for you guys to respond the way you did in the second half?
We just had to be the tougher team, really. We kind of knew what we had to adjust and what we had to fix when we came out. Like what I said before, we just had to stay even keel and have belief. That was the number one thing. We just had to say, forget the score. Just go out there and play hard. The first half was embarrassing for us because we don't typically give up 50 points in the first half. So, we just had to stop, look at the score. Be the tougher team, just impose our will, really. And like I said kind of before, just believe, put your head down and do the hard work. And then when you look back up, either you won or you put up a pretty good fight. In this case, we won. So.
Otega, what's it been like being back on campus now since the Duke win? Because I think before that, fans obviously gravitated to Pope because he's one of their own.
Yeah.
But they gravitated probably to you guys. Since you won that Duke game, it made a statement. It gave validation to Pope and to this team, didn't it?
Yeah, it definitely did. Obviously, when you go to Kentucky, you kind of like rock stars, really. So, just after that first Duke win that we had, people started to believe. There was a lot of question marks coming into the season, really. So, the first Duke win that we had, people really just started to see that. We're legit. We play hard. We're gonna go out there every single game and just give it our all. So, it's nice we're in Kentucky because, like I said, we kind of rock stars on campus, really.
Hey, you're not paying for much over there anymore, are you?
Nah, we still pay it, but it's nice out there for sure.
Don't let this man fall. Come on, Goodman.
Otega, take us inside this locker room. I imagine Coach Pope got wet. What happened?
Actually, nah, he really didn't this time. It was just a surreal moment for we just went into the locker room, just hugged each other, gave our speeches really because kind of like we said earlier, probably a lot of people counted us out while the game was going. So, just embracing the moment really. That's what it was in the locker room. Obviously, it was all exciting. When we went into halftime, we were really vocal, talking about what we had to do to get better, and we executed on all that. So it was really just a lot of the guys just showing how proud we were of each other.
Now, wait, gave speeches. Who's speaking in the locker room? Give us a taste. What's that look like?
Well, we're a team, we're a player-led team, really. So we got the whole team talk. We got Kerr talking. Y'all know Kerr. Y'all know how he gets. So
Kerr never shuts up.
Yeah.
Hey, tell my boy Kerr to shut up eventually, all right?
Yeah, he had us fired up. So, we love Kerr, but we had him, we had Jax, Amari, pretty much everybody. And then the coaches will come in after, and then they'll ask us what we talk about, because kind of like what I said before, we're a player-led team. And those are the best teams, really, when you know what you have to do and you can communicate through all the ups and downs.
Hey, when Kerr's yelling, do you even understand what he's saying when he gets all fired up?
At first I didn't, but we're around each other 24/7, so now I'm picking it up. I'm picking everything up.
I'm kidding.
Man.
All right, let's let him go. They got to catch a flight back.
Get on that plane, man. Enjoy it.
Yes, sir.
Celebrate,
yes, sir.
man.
Appreciate y'all.
Congrats on the
Appreciate
victory.
you guys. Y'all have a good one.
Wow, that's Otega Oweh. Did you hear that, Coach McCall? Did you hear him say it? Player-led team.
Yeah, nothing better. That's how you win.
Right.
Nothing better. The coach runs a couple ball plays, a couple underneath out of bounds plays, coming out of timeouts. If your players are led, if they lead your team, that's how you win. That's how you win. If the coach is constantly having to pull it out of you, you have no shot.
McCall, one thing too that I with Pope that I'd never really seen before after the win against Duke was he walks in, and it's Andrew Carr, and I think it might have just been he and Andrew Carr. And he walks in, and Andrew Carr says, basically, I'm going to make the opening statement. And he just makes the opening statement and starts talking. And I've never seen that before. Every other coach, every other college post-game news conference, the coach starts out by talking. And I thought it was really telling for, again, the freedom and the responsibility and the fact that Mark Pope doesn't give a you-know-what about it being about himself. John Calipari would come in and he'd talk for 5 minutes. He literally would talk for 5 minutes before you'd even get to a question, and then you'd ask him a question, and he'd never actually answer the question. He'd answer whatever he wanted to. Mark Pope, just like it's a complete 180 is what I'm trying to say from the previous guy. That's all.
Well, the other piece of it is coaches were always like so reactive. Okay, so we're going to wait until it's going really, really bad, and then we're going to have this huge meeting, and everyone's going to go around in a circle, and everyone's going to talk about how they feel, right? Like that's what we're going to be reactive to when it's not going well, instead of take some ownership.
Like someone who's been there. You sound like someone who's been there before.
A few times, Fanta, a few times. No, take some ownership. Let the players talk, and then let the coach. I think it's still early. Really cool. We don't need to overreact. Right? We don't need to overreact. It's still early. That's what we all tend to do. We tend to overreact to everything, whether it's going really, really well or it's going really, really bad. But this is fun to watch. It's fun to watch. There's no question about it.
Jeff, I want to get your live, raw reaction to this. You and I were talking earlier this week about Cal's return game.
Yeah.
With Kentucky winning these games, the fan base has to already be raised to, when Louisville comes in next Saturday, like Louisville hasn't been good, but they're going to be waiting because Louisville's got a new coach. They want to show Louisville what they're all about. If anything, this ramps up Cal's return because, BBN's going to be saying, look at us now.
Yeah. We want to beat the crap out of you now. And we can. They're going to expect to beat the living crap out of that Arkansas team. And obviously Cal's going to come in. Arkansas, we'll talk about them a little bit later, hopefully, but their best win right now, I don't think they've beaten – their best win is against a Miami team that frankly stinks. That's their most impressive win so far. So, we all circled – I know I did February 1st in the calendar for Cal to come back to Kentucky, and we thought when he came back he would have the superior team. And right now it's completely flipped.
Wow. 90-89, Kentucky a winner over Gonzaga. Again, at halftime, this was 50-34 Zags. Kentucky outscores Gonzaga 45-29 in the second half, and they take it. They own wins over the Gonzaga Bulldogs and the Duke Blue Devils, and that, folks, right there is an absolute statement maker from Kentucky. We will be back with much more after these messages. We still have to go around a couple other leagues. We got some breaking news on this Saturday, some wild news. And also coming up, Archie Miller, Rhode Island head coach. His team is 9-0. It's a great story. Plus, some of the most expensive teams in college basketball are the ones who appear to be disappointing the most. That's all next on After Dark.
Now that college basketball season is back in full swing, I need to remind you guys about our partners over at Autograph, where the real college hoops fans reside. The Autograph app curates all of the best content for every sports fan and every sports fan's favorite team. Podcasts, blogs, analysis. It's all there without the nonsense from the talking heads that don't actually watch the games. And there's a bonus. Consuming content on the Autograph app earns you coins that can be redeemed for rewards for things like no-fee tickets or signed jerseys from your favorite players. There are a couple new features in the app that I need to let you guys know about as well. Autograph Replay gives you a quick-hitting summary of the previous day's news so you can keep track of all the important things going on with your favorite teams. And Autograph Rooms allows you to chat in real time with the true voices of fandom within your team's community. So go to the link in the description or scan that QR code on your screen and download the Autograph app.
Welcome back to the Field of 68 After Dark in the morning. Matt McCall, Jeff Goodman, John Fanta here with you. And to all of those watching, we appreciate you. We have broken a network record tonight after Kentucky beats Gonzaga 90-89. So let's take you around college basketball elsewhere for a moment before we get to those Rhode Island Rams, because let's tie this all together. Yeah. North Carolina, today they get tested by Georgia Tech. They come out a winner, but things have not looked pretty in Chapel Hill. Arkansas, they got embarrassed on Thanksgiving Day by Illinois. That's not a cheap roster. It's an expensive roster. And the Tysons, you have to wonder if what they're thinking right now as Kentucky is pulling this off. Kansas State was heavily expensive, millions and millions of dollars. Coleman Hawkins in the area code of $2 million. Let's face it, the Wildcats, they have lost to LSU, Liberty, and now St. John's. Jeff, what does that tell you about those programs? If you want to point at one, I know we were talking Carolina earlier this week, and just the state of things that some of the most expensive teams, well, money doesn't necessarily buy you happiness.
That's a great point, John. That's a great point. It does not, because, again, you've got to put together teams that fit together, number one. And when you're paying some of these kids big NIL, some of them aren't going to be quite as motivated, frankly. And then there's going to be maybe some chemistry issues on the team if these guys getting big NIL aren't producing. So there's no actual figures out there right now. But what I will say is 3 teams that are in the top 5, maybe 7 in NIL right now are Arkansas, Kansas State, and Indiana. All 3 of them right now are struggling mightily, right? I mean, look at Kansas State today. They lose to St. John's. No shame. I mean, they were up and they end up losing, but, they've lost to LSU at home, to Liberty on a neutral court. Indiana went 1-2 in the Bahamas. They've beaten virtually nobody. I don't want to say nobody. They beat Providence on a neutral court. They beat South Carolina at home, but those don't look like tournament teams so far. And as I said earlier, Arkansas's best win at a Miami team that's lost 6 in a row right now. So those 3 teams, just because you have a big payroll, and all 3 of those are paying out more than $5 million, and I think Arkansas and Kansas State are well over that. I think Indiana is probably right around 5. The other 2 are well over 5. It doesn't mean you're going to win. So you have to be smart in how you go about it and put together a team that fits, where Indiana just hasn't maybe run an offense that both listen, I think honestly, if you want to get it straight for me, like a couple of those, their staffs are a little bit questionable. Their offenses are a little bit questionable. And, again, you're putting together Kansas State. I just didn't think the pieces fit together all that well. They're not playing on Yensu at all, which I don't think he should be playing, but they paid him a handsome amount of NIL to sit on the bench.
McCall, what do you make of the current climate? What do you make of some of these teams?
It only takes one, Fanta, to mess the whole thing up. And we're not in those locker rooms, right? We're not in there. We don't know the insides. We're just watching and we're critiquing what they're running on offense, how they're guarding pick and rolls, different things. We're critiquing what we see. But I said it earlier in the show, you can play the game of basketball a lot of different ways. And look, the offense that Kentucky's running right now with the ball movement and the passing and all that, we love to see it. It's great. But in terms of what's going on the interior of your locker room, when guys are getting paid this amount of money, okay, someone could be upset. And if your team is not connected, I don't care how much money you have in NIL, I don't care how talented your roster is, but if your team is not connected, you have no shot. You have no shot. If your staff is not connected, you have no shot. If you have a member of your staff that thinks this guy should be getting paid more money and he's the coach should be playing him, whatever it may be, like, you have no shot. It's all about that connectivity. So I think when you see some of these teams that have these high payrolls, I think it's a lack of that. But we're not on the inside. We don't see inside their locker room, so it's hard for us to say it. We want to critique what they're running on offense, but when you have a talented team that's not performing at the level that they should be performing at, There's a lot of layers to unpeel in terms of that.
All right, let's turn to the ACC for a moment. You look at this league, and there were conference games today, and it's like somebody said to me earlier today, Jeff, like, for this league, the best teams in this conference can't take a road, even a road loss to some of the other teams in this league. For instance, Pitt was at Virginia Tech. I mean, Virginia Tech's now 3-6. Pitt survived. Carolina beats Georgia Tech 68-65. This is where I want to go, Jeff. 68-65 against a Georgia Tech team that entered it at 4-4. You were tweeting about this during the game. Outside of the guards, this front court for North Carolina is mind-boggling.
Yeah. I mean, they went to the portal, and frankly, they overpaid for guys they probably shouldn't have. And we were hoping that Jalen Washington would take a jump, and he really hasn't. They had 0 points out of their front court at halftime. 0. The goose egg. I mean, that is unbelievable. Out of three bigs.
As many as the three of us? As many as the three of us?
I mean, 0 points. Jalen Withers, Jalen Washington, and Allen Lubin. Yeah, had a combined 0 points. And it just shows you the difference. And they're so small on the perimeter. That's the other part. So, RJ and Cadeau are small guards, and Seth Trimble's got a little bit of length, but they're not long really at any position for the most part. It's a poorly constructed team, and it's showing itself right now. That's another guy. Again, you look at, to me, it shouldn't be this hard. It really shouldn't be this hard if you're North Carolina. You have money. You have the North Carolina brand. You won last year. You have momentum back where you didn't have it 2 years ago. So, if you're Hubert Davis, honestly, you got to be just looking in the mirror and blaming yourself. You can't even blame these players because they're not at fault. You put the wrong guys around RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau. You needed length on the front line. You needed to pay and get a big-time guy and maybe overpay to get a big-time front-line guy. And you didn't do it, and now you're seeing the results, and they're predictable.
McCall, what's up with North Carolina? Yeah, I think if you're not going to get production out of your front court and you're not going to make threes, that's a bad combination. That is a bad combination. They shot 20% from the three-point line against Georgia Tech today and got 0 production out of their front court. I'm kind of with Jeff just in terms of the roster. It's Carolina, and I was tuning in the show the other night when and Henson was even chiming in a little bit. The sell to Carolina, and I had to recruit against it, right? And it didn't matter the front court players we were recruiting at Florida. We always lined up and tried to recruit against Carolina. It was you go to North Carolina as a front court player, you're going to go to the NBA. That's the sell. And look at them all. Oh, just look up in the rafters up there because they all went to the NBA. And it continued. John Henson played in the NBA. Tony Bradley played in the NBA. The trend continued, and for them to not have a high level front court player, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not what we're used to in terms of Carolina, and I think you got to be sitting there scratching your head a little bit, where are they going from here? Because if they're not going to make a ton of threes and you're not getting production out of your front court, it could be a long year. The ACC, and look, last year it was the ACC's down, and then we see the run that NC State makes to the Final Four and the success they had in the NCAA tournament. But I'm looking at these teams and I'm like, is it still built the same way? Are these teams built the same way that they were last year? Duke's clearly in a class of their own in terms of that league, but the bottom of the league, oof, it's not elevating anybody by any means.
How about the middle? I mean, the problem is, listen, you could count on Virginia every year with Tony Bennett. Syracuse at one point you knew was going to be towards the top and was going to be a tournament team every year. Louisville, prior to Kenny Payne, you knew they were going to be in the mix every single year. Now, who is it? Who is it anymore? And then you've got the bad teams at the bottom that still aren't very good, right? Florida State, Boston College, Wake's struggling this year. Who am I forgetting about? I mean, Clemson's the team that you feel the best about. Clemson might be the second best team in the league this year.
They look like it right now.
Yeah, I still, Pittsburgh has been a little up and down. They got to get healthy. But look, if Jalen Lowe, Leggett, those guys are terrific. So they're going to give them a chance in every single game. They got to get healthy. That's the bottom line. They got to get Dunn back, and they're with Dunn, they're a different team, in my opinion.
I agree with you, but here's the deal. In a world where you got the 36 at-larges, those are going to you're going to have 12 SEC, another 10 Big Ten, 4 or 5 Big East. The ACC has 18 teams, and they're only going to get 4 or 5 of them? Less than a third?
Yeah.
That's pretty disappointing.
You forgot about the Big 12. You forgot about 8 in the Big 12, probably.
I know. So it's
like
not,
right.
And then let's just say Drake wins all but a couple of games, 2 or 3 games. You never know. Yeah. If somebody in the Atlantic 10, which is where we're going next, the Atlantic 10 could be a multi-bid league here this year, and that's exactly where we're going to turn to now because Matt McCall, the
great segue. Great
Matt
segue,
McCall,
Fanta.
Thank you. Well, Saturday night, Duster is off tonight. He's sending us social clips and stuff. We take the show into new directions. We spin
definitely
it forward.
Not sleeping. We know that.
Well, he's not sleeping. He told us earlier he does not sleep. Rhode Island.
For McCall. Hey, McCall, you got to be tired. This is the latest you've been up in 3 years since you left UMass.
There's no question. There's no question. But I'm battling through right now, Goodman. Come on, let's go.
There are some people at UMass right now who are up as well at this hour thinking about what's coming. Okay, in the A-10, Rhode Island beat Providence 69-63. Get this. The Rams are 9-0 for the first time since 1947. Matt McCall, Archie Miller in year 3. It has not been this unbelievable schedule, but 9-0 is 9-0. And today at the Ryan Center, what a scene and what a win.
You know what? I had their game last year at LaSalle, and it was the last game before they redid Tom Gola Arena. And LaSalle beat the brakes off them. Like they beat the brakes off of him. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at Archie Miller, and I coached against him when I was at Chattanooga. We played him when he was at Dayton. Obviously, we played him in the Final Four when I was an assistant, or the Elite Eight when I was an assistant at Florida. And I'm sitting over there, I'm like, that's just man, he just doesn't look the same. Like he just looks miserable standing over there on the sideline. It's just, and it wasn't going well. And to see the turnaround that they're 9-0 right now, you just got to stick with it. And I said this in the interview, and we'll hear it. I was trying to get back from having dinner with my family on a Saturday night, but like you just got to stick with it. And he didn't forget how to coach, right? Going through the experiences at Indiana, going through the experiences the last 2 years. Like let's not forget what this guy did at Dayton. Like he didn't forget how to draw up a ball play or how to have a really good connected team. It just needed some time, and he needed to figure out the job at Rhode Island. And I've said this in the 5 years that I was in the Atlantic 10. I think Dayton and VCU, in terms of the Atlantic 10, are in a class of their own. I'm talking about in environments to play in. But when the Ryan Center is rocking, that is in that very, very next tier. I would put Rhode Island as the number 3, one of the best environments in all the Atlantic 10. Like VCU and Dayton, you can't mess with it. St. Bonaventure, you probably put up there too because it's all the way in Olean, and it's a cool place to go, and that place is rocking too. You got the guy with the beer hat on, okay? Like, but the Ryan Center, but the Ryan, and I they told me to go home before I could go to Loyola Chicago. They came in the year after me, but the Ryan Center, come on, man. I mean and I had to go in there during COVID when there was no fans in there, and it was still a great environment. Right? There was nobody in there during COVID, but and to see what he's doing. The guy didn't forget how to coach, and it's great to see.
Jeff,
I've been there for that game. I've been there for that game several times, Fanta, and that place is ridiculous. I was there back when Jimmy Barron played. Wayme Fajuco going in the URI for Providence. I mean, like I've been many a time, and it's a very underrated home court advantage. they want to come, but they got to be good enough to come for more than just the Providence URI game. And I think now Archie Miller's going to see a true home court advantage that he probably hasn't seen maybe since the first few games of his first season a couple years ago in Kingston. And I think, McCall, you know this, like that'll be a significant advantage that he really hasn't had over the last 2 years. And obviously, you know, he feels better about this team than he has the first 2 years when he won a combined 21 games. But the key is going to be whether he can sustain it.
You know, we really know how to treat our former cast members here. We really put Archie in the A block here, 1:20 a.m. Eastern time. I can guarantee you, McCall, in Archie Miller's time with the Field of 68, he was never on at 1:20 a.m. on the East Coast. But he is right now as our guest. Here's our conversation. The Rhode Island Rams are on the national radar in college basketball. URI takes down Providence for the first time since 2019 with a 69-63 win over the Friars earlier today in Kingston. And we are joined by the third-year head coach at Rhode Island, now our former Field of 68 colleague, Archie Miller, is with us. Archie, congratulations on a great win over Providence. Your program is 9-0 for the first time since 1947. How have you been able to get to this point with this team and win a rivalry game over PC today?
You know, our team was together a lot more this summer. We had a little foreign trip. We went down to the Bahamas. We spent a lot more time together than we maybe normally have in a couple off seasons with a lot of additions, and you know, and we made it a point to work this summer a little bit differently. You know, almost treat the summer almost like it's the fall, and we're able to learn a lot about our guys, but more importantly, our players for the first time needed to get a chance to spend some time together, know who they're working out with every day, you know, go to the Bahamas and do that. That trip was beneficial to the bonding chemistry. And then, you know, I think we realized pretty early we had some pieces, but building our defense and becoming a tough-minded group and doing all that stuff, it's been a work in progress. Our schedules helped us here early. We've been able to get some confidence with winning. I think that's important depending on who your team is on a given basis, on a yearly basis, that you don't beat yourself down when you don't have to. And we knew coming into December, you know, Yale at home, Providence at home, that's a big week. You know what I mean? Those are two teams right there that compete. You know, they're trying to compete for March just like everybody else. And this was a big week. But today, you know, you don't need a lot of motivation. You know, there's a lot of hype around the game. And I think, you know, we wanted to make sure that we were, you know, doing the things that we've been doing. And I didn't think we were great in the first half, but I thought in the second half we really settled in and we were able to control the game a little bit more. And it made it easier on our defense because, you know, Providence, best thing they do is their speed, especially with Bryce coming back. And we were able to contain that a little better in the second half. But, you know, it's every coach has, a different group almost every year. And we made it a point that, you know, we were going to try our best this year to really spend a lot more time on the front end and get a chance to get some things sorted out before we got into the games.
Coach, we live in a day and age, and it's what have you done for me lately? And instant gratification and the portal and everything, and you're supposed to win in year one. But sometimes you got to go through some stuff. Yeah. And you look at your program the last couple of years and what you guys have gone through, and I know we got a long way to go before the A-10 tournament and all that, but just it's got to be gratifying just to see where your program's at now. And you didn't forget how to coach, right? Like when you're going through some struggles and everything, but just for you and your program to see where you guys are now, it's got to be a little bit gratifying for you.
You know, a lot of work was put in. You know, we've sort of been laying in the mud with our face planted in it. And, you know, you're trying to get up and you get pushed back down in it again. You know what I mean? It's just like, are you ever going to get any breathing room? It's not easy depending on where you're at and how you have to do it. And you're trying to figure out the right strategy. In many ways in the last 3 years, we've had to change philosophies in how we recruit or what we're doing. And we made a commitment in the springtime to bring back the right guys. And I look at the guys that we brought back, and Dave Green, Jaden House, David Fuchs, Cam Estevez, and always Wright was brought back as well, always as redshirting. But those 4 guys played a lot of minutes for us. We needed some retention, we needed some production, and we needed to build around them. And we were able to bring back for the first time a core group that had some experience. And then we kind of went into the portal with not a random philosophy. We needed specific pieces, and we didn't want a lot of them. And right now, we're playing a really tight rotation. Guys are kind of bent into their roles. And I think at the end of the day, maybe this recipe took a couple years of struggle to figure out, but it's not easy to go through it. And I'm happy that, our team is embracing where we're at right now, just in terms of like the feeling of winning, because that's what it's about. But I'll also tell you this, that, it can go away quickly if you don't keep your eyes on the prize. But make no mistake, it has been a slow climb, and trying to tinker with the philosophy and how to get it right. It takes some time maybe, but I like our pieces.
Hey, you got any last words for Fanta and his Cleveland Browns before you go, Arch?
I just know this, that Blizzard Bowl was a fluke, and we will double back with you in the near future.
Yeah. I go off results.
Yeah, good luck in the draft.
Thanks, Arch. Good luck in the playoffs.
We'll be moving towards the AFC title game.
Thanks, Arch. Congratulations on your victory over the Friars, and have a great rest of your Saturday night. Good luck the rest of the way. We love this story out of URI. That was just wrong. I mean, that was go Browns.
No.
The Steelers here coming up in less than 12 hours. I can't believe it's 1:27 a.m. Eastern time, as our friend Trevor Valise just said. He's got TikToks to post. He'll be clocking out at 5, and then at 11 a.m. here later today, Maryland and Purdue get it rolling. Come on now. This is college basketball season. This is, honestly, Jeff, we've done this show now for several years. I would say this is one of the wildest nights because of the way the Kentucky-Gonzaga game went that we've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was like a big boy game, again, that we just didn't expect. We didn't expect it. And anytime you've got Big Blue Nation involved, and I've said this, like, they're the best fan base and the worst fan base. Trust me, I know. But they know their shit. They're all in. Now, I had to change my number years ago because of them. But again, I respect the hell out of them for their knowledge. And, I mean, they're like no other. They are like no other.
Did you hear that, McCall? He had to change his phone number.
What could you possibly have said to BBN that they made you like you had to change your phone number? Like, what did you say? Like, what did you put out there that they had to change? You had to change your.
I think it was a couple stories. I think it was a couple stories that I wrote on one. John Calipari. Actually, they were at Memphis. The stories I wrote on Cal, I think they were both in Memphis. Maybe one was at Kentucky. One was at Memphis, and they were both completely factual. I mean, like, literally completely factual. We'll do it. We'll do this another night.
I will say this.
Jeff Goodman change his number. That is awesome.
I want to give a special thanks to Deb Moore in Kentucky, because when big games happen like that, we really, really appreciate the access, especially to a blue blood program, which, John, you think about our network this week. John Shire came on with you earlier this week, late at night. Tonight, we get Otega Oweh. This is Field of 68 After Dark. We give you the access. We give you the special guests. And there's nothing like this show right now. While if you tune into any network on television, they are all talking about who the 11th or 12th team is going to be in just over 10
the Indiana
hours.
Hoosiers. It's the Indiana Hoosiers, fan. Where are they playing? I thought they were going to play Georgia, and I could drive to Athens, but then Georgia wins tonight, and now I don't know if I'm going to be able to go.
You're taking Indiana over SMU, huh? You're just
Taking Indiana, absolutely.
Yeah, you're taking
And
Indiana
save
over
that
SMU.
trophy.
Guess what? Guess what, McCall? You're taking Alabama over SMU too. See ya, ponies. Your pony show's
South
over.
Carolina, Ole Miss.
No,
We're not rewarded.
hey ponies. Hey ponies of SMU, get ready to learn Bloomin' Onion at the Outback Bowl. McCall. Toast of the night, McCall. Toast of the night. Go ahead and toast something.
Oh man, give me Archie Miller, man. To see where he was at Tom Gola Arena last March, I think it was like March 2nd or 3rd, and to be undefeated, I got to give Archie and his team, because that was a dark, dark day, and that was the last game in the old Tom Gola Arena. And Fanta, if you've never called a game in Tom Gola Arena, in the old Tom Gola Arena, and you had to walk up those long stairs from your locker room to the floor, see where he was there and see where that team is. I got to go Archie. Former Field of 68 alum.
Love it. I love it. Jeff Goodman, who you toasting tonight?
I'm going to stick with the coach's theme, and I'm going to throw it back on one final time. Mark Pope, baby. Mark Pope, deserving. Gets the ultimate resume win. You know, he has now beaten Duke and Gonzaga. I wouldn't be surprised if both those teams are number one seeds come Selection Sunday. Hell of a night, Mark Pope. Enjoy that flight back.
You know, I'm always looking around the sport to see if I can give somebody else love. So I actually am. I'm gonna give some love to Washington State, who went on the road to Boise today and won 74-69 in what is a bit of a surprising result. Boise State was like a 9-point favorite in this game, and the star of the game for Washington State is a guy by the name of Lawan Watts, a sophomore who had a huge game. He's a transfer from Eastern Washington. He had 20, 11, and 6. So that's a very good win there for Washington State. Obviously,
you know who his grandfather is?
And David Riley with a big win.
Do you know who his grandfather is? DeJuan Watts? Doster didn't know the answer to this. Slick Watts.
Fire.
Slick Watts was a hell of a player many, many, many years ago. So don't feel bad. Doster didn't know either when we interviewed him.
Well, we're also talking about Doster. It's like when you in the After Dark chat welcomed one of our incoming hosts who did a great job in Charleston, Paul Frischner, and you said, Paul, you're already better than Rob. I mean,
you weren't supposed to say that publicly, Fanta. Come on.
Oh, okay. Got it. That's going to do it for us here at 1:32 a.m. So, yeah, Lawan Watts and Washington State, Coach Riley, congrats on the win. What a show. What a night. These are the nights that we love, and this is why college basketball in December is still the best, and we pray for all of you who choose to not follow the sport until March because you're missing out on Goodman wearing a Kentucky Santa hat. For Coach McCall, for Jeff Goodman, I'm John Fanta. Trevor Valise is going to go post TikToks for 3 hours. Good morning, everybody. Have a good rest of the evening.